Misleading ads are ads that essentially portray either visuals, claims or representations that are distorted in a way that makes the message misleading, and this could be by implication, by omission, by ambiguity or by exaggeration. Now, in most cases, the ads that ASCI actually processes tend to be in the area of misleading ads. So, over 90% of the ads that we look at are misleading. Now, when we look at a misleading ad, the important thing is that we look at the ad as a whole in its entire context. So, everything in the ad put together, whether it's the visual claims or any other representations, together are considered to see whether the ad is giving an impression that it cannot actually justify. So, the first provision with respect to misleading ads is that all facts and claims made in an ad must be capable of substantiation, that they must be based on certain evidence and the source of that evidence or the source of that claim, or if it's based on a study, for example, needs to be mentioned in the ad. So, these are the first provisions when it comes to misleading ads. The next provision that is there in the misleading ads chapter is really about whether an advertisement is referring to a person or an institute of repute without their permission. Now, what happens in these cases is that if they refer to such a person or a reputed institute without taking their permission, it actually gives them an unfair advantage over competition. And doing so can also bring these people or these institutes under some disrepute, or it kind of may sully their reputation by being a part of a misleading ad. So, any such kind of mention is also considered misleading and is not allowed under the ASCI code. The next provision in the misleading ads chapter is really about advertising not distorting facts, and therefore making the ad misleading by implication, omission, exaggeration or ambiguity. Let me explain a little bit about each one of these. So, when we say an ad could be misleading by implication, for example, if there is an ad which is talking about biscuits having the same energy as milk. Now, what happens is that at a kilocalorie level that may be an accurate claim, but the implication really is that biscuits may be as nutritious as milk, and that is therefore misleading consumers by implication. The second is by omission. Another example that I can give you is real money gaming ads. Now, a lot of them will talk about the winnings that you can get and that you can win so much money, but many of them will not mention that you could also lose money. Now, that is therefore not giving complete information to the consumers for them to take an informed decision. So, these kind of ads can be considered to be misleading by omission. The third is misleading by exaggeration. Now, for example, if an institute in a particular locality says that we are the #1 institute of this area, or we are the best institute in this area, or we have the best faculty, for example, and if that claim is actually not based on an independent ranking, and this is just something that they are saying to to talk well about themselves, then this could be misleading because consumers may take that information to be true, and therefore this is called misleading by exaggeration. The fourth kind of aspect of misleading ads could be misleading by ambiguity. This means that there are certain phrases used. For example, if you say that I'm advertising a face cream and this face cream is really better than others. Now, the consumer may wonder, what is it actually better than? How much is it better than something else? So, when certain important information is kind of left in a very vague way in an advertisement where the consumer does not really understand the full implication of what is being said, then that could be considered to be an ad that is misleading by ambiguity. So, another way in which ads can be misleading is when they abuse the trust of consumers or exploit their lack of knowledge or experience. An example of this is during the pandemic. We had so many products and advertisements that were claiming that they could cure corona or that they could kind of prevent this disease. Now, this was really something that was taking advantage of consumers' vulnerability at a time where they were really looking up to brands, for example, to help them. So, again, advertisements like this can lead to grave and widespread disappointment amongst consumers, as far as the delivery of the product goes. And therefore, this is something which also is considered under misleading ads. So advertising is a creative field, and I think even consumers enjoy advertising because it depicts things creatively. The interesting thing to note is the thin line that separates exaggeration from misleading. And while exaggeration is allowed in advertising, what really works is when consumers along with the advertiser realize the intent of that creative device or that exaggeration, and they are actually not misled by it. But there could be times where the statements made, that the advertiser considers are actually exaggerated, could be interpreted very literally by the consumers, and in which case the ad could end up misleading them. So I think the golden rule is, if the consumer can see the amusement and the exaggeration as clearly as the advertiser can, then it's fine, otherwise it's not. Creative license and creativity is really the cornerstone of the advertising industry, and that's one of the reasons why so many people really love advertising. ASCI has great respect for creativity. I think, however, that great creativity comes with its set of responsibility. The aim of advertising is actually to create connection with consumers and to build brands authentically. Great creativity actually helps brands to build long-term trust and relationships with consumers, and therefore creativity which keeps consumer protection at its core is really, I think, what we are looking for. And there is enough evidence, like I said, that this is creativity which really works both for consumers and for brands. Now, this is an interesting case for ASCI to look at. When products or goods are mass produced, there are chances that there could be an occasional lapse or an occasional failure of the product or service. Now, how do we assess whether the ad itself is misleading in this case? So we look at three issues. First issue that we look at is the claim inherently substantiated or not? That's number one. The second thing that we look at is what is the proportion of failure, or what's the failure rate. So if we see a large percentage of product failing, then it would mean that the ad itself could be misleading. But if the failure rate is really low, then it's possibly a production lapse that has happened. And the third thing is, has the company really made any efforts to make good that product or service deficiency to consumers? So if these three criteria are fulfilled, which means that the claim is capable of substantiation, that the failure rate is low, and if the company has made reasonable efforts to make good the product or service deficiency to consumers, then the ad itself is not considered misleading.